Hi, this is Todd Rheingold, the Hopeful Aspirant. Welcome to another installment of I Got a Testimony. Last week, my guest, John Demers, spoke very solemnly about his struggles with depression and suicidal tendencies in his youth, and how he was able to come through that experience and really enjoy life as it is today for him. This week, John is back to discuss his artistic endeavors and share more of his wisdom about what we can do to appreciate what we have and to have more peace in our lives.
Here's the other thing I like to say is, Dickens got it right, but it wasn't just for that one book. It's always the best of times and it's always the worst of times. It has to do, and take it from me, somebody who spent probably more of his life being negative. It's an effort for me to be positive. I wasn't raised to just naturally be positive, and it's my lineage, my family, whatever. But I had to, at 24, I had to learn, you better start to learn to be more positive and be grateful for what you have, because if you don't, you're just not going to make it. And it's always the best of times, the worst of times. It depends on how you choose to view your day. Even when it's downpour raining, like it's been doing here so much, find something you can do inside that brings you some joy, some peace, spend more time with your kids. There's always a better way of looking at something. There are people with cancer who are in their fourth stages who are smiling and saying, this is the best thing to happen to me because. Now, I'm not at that place where I can, I think, be that magnanimous or selfless, but it is possible to get to that place. And like John said, in many ways, he's in that place now. Now, I would never have known it when I went out to his house 10 years ago. I was just telling him the other day that it was just, wow. I half wanted to ask him, can I just like bring a suitcase and stay here for a while, because it was what I wanted. It was the family, and it was peaceful, because like he said, he had 18 acres and he had a little farm with the animals, and his daughter was 12 at the time, and she kind of shepherded me around the property and introduced me to the animals. And I couldn't believe how poised she was, and how, confident but calm, and not, no ego there. And then his son came home from school with his wife, and they were just so gracious, as if they had known me for some time. And wow, it just blew me away. And then that night you had the party for Rusty Bucket Kids to premiere the music, and so Roxanna sang, and that young gentleman, and had a big party with all these friends. And I was like, wow, I could only dream about having this kind of a life. And it was so beautiful. But at the same time, for me at that time, I was so intimidated, like I could never ever have this. So I'm glad you shared that, John.
See, now I get to look back. Those are those nuggets
Mm-hmm.
that I'm talking about. So if I had taken my life,
Right.
I wouldn't have the opportunity to look back and in between the dark clouds, see these nuggets, because
Right.
those nuggets for other people can be big.
Right.
Like you're sharing how that time
Mm-hmm.
meant something to you.
Uh-huh.
Well, those things happen with other people.
Right.
We don't know where we're going to be when that light is shining, when the warmth is felt, when we feel the spirit moving through us.
Yep.
Because we only know it if we're there.
Right.
We have to be there.
And then to just kind of put the bookend on that particular thing, at that time, on that day, I mean, my marriage was starting to unravel. I had a young boy who was in preschool, and a stepdaughter who was about 14, 15, I think. And I was going through a really tough time. I wasn't working full time. I was barely working part time. I was mostly a stay-at-home dad still. And I'm looking at my life and looking at John and going, I don't know what the next 10 years is going to be, but it doesn't look very good. And I can say this, that it was extremely challenging. My wife and I ended up where we did not stay together. However, we are pretty good friends. We are working very well together and raising our son. I was able to get back to full-time work and learn some more about myself. I just recently wrote my second book called The Hopeful Aspirant, My Journey of Faith, So there was a 27-year gap between the first one and the second one. But I did that. And I'm fortunate that I'm in a much better place than I was 10 years ago now. If you had asked me a year ago, how are you? I was in a terrible place a year ago, the worst place I've been in 15 years. It was a combination of putting on 25 pounds. My thyroid was out of control. I was in a terrible job with an awful abusive manager, and I saw no way out. And when that happens and you feel the walls closing in on you, and then I'm a single parent now with 2 mortgages. But like John said, I can't stress it enough. We're not saying it's easy to hang in there each day, but God is real. I'm telling you, I didn't grow up with God that way, that intimate personal relationship that I have now, but he is real. He hears you. Hang in there long enough, because just in the last few months, well, really in the last, say, 8 months with this show has reconnected me with people like John, friends of mine from elementary school, and introduced me to some new folks. And now a new job has opened up, and I'm hopeful that that's going to lead to even bigger and better things. So you never know. I mean, storms are going to come. You can never put your joy and your peace in the things of this world, because they're transient. You may have something today and you don't have it tomorrow. So you can't put your joy in a car, a job, a spouse, whatever. Those things can go away. That's why you need that higher power, because that higher power gives you a perspective on your life where it's not just about you. It's about 7.5 billion people. I hear people say it on my show all the time, and I read it all the time, and I see it on YouTube. Whenever you're feeling bad about your own life, help someone else.
You will be blessed if you help someone else when you're not doing so well.
It doesn't have to be working at the food bank. You could just have polite conversation with somebody who needs it and encourage someone else. It makes you feel like you matter. And when you feel like you matter, now you have purpose, and now you're not going to feel those bad feelings. But I know we've stayed on that subject a while. I wanted to switch to something a little lighter.
Okay.
It's very hard being an artist, but in some ways it's harder on the people that love you. So Michelle has more of the typical type career. I think she's an engineer.
She's an engineer, mechanical engineer. That's
right. And that's not necessarily typical, but it's a good job. It's a steady career. And so the fact that she's been understanding and supportive with what you've done, I was wondering if you would be willing to comment on that and just how you've been able to make that work.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, I mean, I've made some good money as an actor. I can remember my wife, she'd go to the mailbox and she'd just bring residual checks down the driveway and go, this is wild. You worked like for 4 days and you've been making money on it for, I think it was a couple of years. But it's an interesting story, because here I was working the LA market, booking regional and national television commercials. I shot the last TV commercial that Dale Earnhardt Sr. was in. And it was part of a campaign that I got cast in as well, that would have gone on for several years. And we would have been doing these comedic commercials, me being the pit crew chief of a fictitious race car team for Circle K, which was the official pit stop of NASCAR at the time. And then Dale Earnhardt. And so talk about the highs and the lows. I was already working. I was already doing regional and national commercials. So that was already something that was in play. I had been working on the West Wing doing precision driving. So in a sense, my career was doing well. I was making enough in the union that I was being covered by their health plan. So I was what they would have called a working actor. And I would have been able to live on my own and sustain myself. And so this was going on. Well, as we all know, Dale Earnhardt died at the end of Daytona. Well, Daytona was the start of the campaign for this. So here I'd already made some money because I'd shot commercials, and a few had shown in certain testing markets. They were just testing it. So for a couple of weeks, there were a few of them airing. And then the race week before, is when they started. And then the next week they had Daytona. And of course, Daytona, he died. Well, I didn't think much of it until literally Monday by 10 a.m., 11 a.m., LA's opening up for business. They were canceling all my contracts and advising my agent they'd send the cancellation fees, because some of them had fees. I made another like $3,000 or $4,000 because like the billboard contract for me was like $140,000. Just my image and likeness on the billboards with Dale. Yeah, they never went up because they were going to go up starting after Daytona, because it was basically the start of the race season. And so that went away. Then the commercials that we were scheduled to shoot at various tracks, because they were going to shoot us at every racetrack. So I had to go to every race, except I showed up literally the day the race was ending, like that afternoon. I'd stay at a local hotel where everybody had been checking out. And then the next day we'd film the commercial while there was still some infrastructure left on the track. They went away. They sent checks for that. Not big money there, but all that stuff got canceled. About 6 months later, they brought me back in and we reshot one of the commercials with another race guy. And he was not much of a draw, and they bagged the whole thing. But what was supposed to have been almost a $300,000 or $400,000 job for me over 2 years turned out to be about $35,000, $30,000. Still, I look back and go, hey, not bad. At the time, it was devastating.
Right.
I thought, oh my God, how can bad stuff still happen in my life? And I think that's the part of it. Bad stuff happens in everybody's life.
Yeah.
It just does.
Even those who believe in God, trust me.
Right. No. I mean, yeah, it just does. But what do you want from that, from your life? Do you want it to rob you of your life?
Right.
Or are you willing to go, okay, I'm going to have some high days, and then I am going to have some low days. I may feel like I have more low days than high days, but you will persevere.
Mm-hmm.
You will make progress.
Right.
And, you've made progress. I've made progress. Can I still make more? I sure can. Can I be better than I am today? Uh-huh. Should I still strive to be better? Yeah.
Sure.
Should I listen to people around me when they want to constructively share ways I could be a better person? Yeah. Because the truth is, the people around you, if they really care about you, will find a kind way to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Not talking about yelling and screaming and throwing things,
Mm-hmm.
but find the people that will talk to you in a kind way.
Mm-hmm.
They do exist.
So you have always been able to sustain yourself while you've been doing your creative pursuits. That's
for the most part. There have been a couple of health scares, like just before I filmed Rusty Bucket, I'd had a couple years where maybe 3 years, I wasn't able to really work because I was losing a lot of weight.
right. You had stomach cancer. Was it stomach cancer?
No, it turned out to be diverticulitis, but eventually it ruptured, but it just never got diagnosed properly because I kept spending a lot of time on the West Coast and I couldn't see like a regular doctor. Like I saw someone out there and I saw someone over here, then I saw someone in Vegas, and then they'd say, well, I just need to check you in the hospital for a few days. And I'd be like, I'm too busy. And so I really didn't pay attention until I started losing the weight. And then, I collapsed and they opened me up and said, oh, no, we know what's wrong. I'm like, okay. So anyway, then I got better, and then we filmed Rusty Bucket Kids.
Take me for a ride to a place I may remember.
I wrote the story while I was in the hospital. When you're finally forced to have free time and lots of it, the creative side can really, really blossom if you let it. And I did. And so then I wrote the concept and the idea for Rusty Bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And within the surgery was June 2009, and we were in production in July and August 2009.
The story begins with a boy and his sister.
See, even that in and of itself is a testimony, and I got to see a little bit of that
Oh, yeah.
as it was coming together. I remember talking to you. I remember reading about it. And I think there might even be a little bit of a short doc on that tape you gave me about the people that all of a sudden kind of lined up to meet you on your path and help you, like the train station, how Apex got behind you so you could film at the train station. If you want to elaborate on some of those things that just kind of came together.
Yeah, it did. I reached out to a few friends in California that had production skills and writing and directing skills to take my story to a more polished level. And then, of course, when we wanted to film locally, we had a train nearby. They call it triangletrain.com is their web address, triangletrain.com. But we put a configuration of their steam engine number 17 and their locomotive or their caboose 308, and that became what we called our character Steamy, the Time Travel Express. And so it was a time travel adventure, and the kids, tween age years, went back and would visit a historical figure. In this case, they were visiting a 15-year-old Abe Lincoln. And so we also needed a cabin that looked like Abe Lincoln's. And I'm one of these that's like, I'm a history buff. I really like history. And so I want to be accurate. And I remember people were like, because I'd show them the web address for Lincoln's boyhood home in Indiana and say, I want to find that cabin. And people would just be looking at me like, there's nothing like that in North Carolina. I mean, someone might have one on their property. We called it the Rusty Bucket Kids because we were filming at the Rusty Bucket in historic downtown Apex. But that shop sort of was the family owned that. And the two kids that time traveled, it was being run by their grandparents. And so we called it the Rusty Bucket Kids. Like I said, you can go to the shop. You can also buy the DVD there if you want. There's my plug. So I remember going to the Rusty Bucket on a particular day to do some more pictures for our location scouting. And I mentioned to the owner, Pam, that, I said, I wish we could find us a log cabin. And she said, I have a customer that has a log cabin and it's just gorgeous. And she said, I'll have him call you. And she did have him call us. And we went out and looked at it. And it was literally there on Highway 64. I mean, again, within all the locations were within 7 or 8 miles of each other. I mean, they're just all right there. And so we went and looked at it. It was perfect.
Did you feel during the course of conceptualizing this, organizing the production, shooting, editing, did you feel, because we've talked about God, we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but did you feel that there was something else with you helping you along this journey that you would?
Oh yeah. That's the angel on my shoulder. That's, now I say that's my brother on my shoulder. I believe that the only reason I wasn't successful at killing myself is because, and I am firmly believing that I have more to do, more people to do good for, and more blessings to receive and give.
There are times where you just feel like he's with you and that something just came together so beautifully that you had nothing to do with, and you just kind of thank God, but you just kind of smile and you have so much peace in that moment. But it also affirms that you're where you need to be at that moment in time. So I'm just curious, as far as not just Rusty Bucket Kids, but any of your projects where you just felt, wow.
It's sort of when you have a right idea, it just unfolds. I think when you are standing and always being ready and being kind of porter at the door of thought, so that you can be alert and tuned in when good starts to happen. Sometimes you do something that you don't know what is next, but it's the step you take because it gets you there.
It's in the book, The Alchemist. The author, Coelho, I think his first name is Pablo, but about the universe conspiring to meet you on the path that you're on. That when you set to do something outside of your comfort zone, but you just feel a calling to do it, and it's usually going to be something creative. It's going to be you wanting to do the book you've always wanted to do, the movie, the dance recital, your CD, or helping someone else to achieve it. But when you step outside of yourself in a creative capacity, something you're very passionate about, the universe, your higher power, your source, God, will conspire to work with you. I'm so impressed by you because you still have such a childlike passion about the industry. It is so rare to see that. I know from being in the business, it's very rare to be able to maintain that. So I was wondering if you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, you're right. There is a childlike quality with that. The first 11 years of my life, I probably had 15 or 16 residences. By that happening, my brother was my friend, and we were very creative. My mother, having been in theater, we just had a lot of creativity in our home. The best times for me and memories are when I really do think back to the times with my brother when I was very young.
Every artist at some point has to sit down and say, am I as talented as I think I am? Is this project as good as I think it is? Maybe I should just do what my uncle, cousin, parents, neighbors said and just take this job at Oracle, just, get a management training. When you got to that point, John, where probably more than once, where people were saying to you, you need to bail on this creative thing. Like, how did you stay in it?
But that's sort of that transition. I went from, I want to be creative, but I want to do something what I think makes a mark, is important, that has a more lasting impression. And I thought it would be in the intelligence community. And yes, I did do some work in the intelligence community. It's because I did do some that I ended up getting out. And I'm going to tell you something. I've met some people in the intelligence community. I've never seen anybody earn an Oscar that's better than any of these people, ever. I get out. We come to the 90s. We come now to this period where I start to figure out what I want to do with my life. Now I'm getting married, settled down. And it turns out I'm gravitating into the creative again. And I really did not want to do that for a career. I wanted to do my military and my government, retire, come home and do community theater. Mm-hmm. And I would have been happy with that. That's not what the cards were. That's not what God wanted me to do.
We both talked about God. People know this is a show called I Got a Testimony on a faith-based network. And I think most people would consider Hollywood to be antithetical to God and religion, that you got liberals and anything goes and it's gratuitous violence and sex and, people who are very hedonistic. But yet there's a whole movement in Hollywood now, if people aren't already aware, of Christian filmmaking, religious, faith-based filmmaking.
Well,
I wanted to know if you were involved in that.
Right. The business community, the money side of the community has known for a long time that family-friendly films as a whole, as a percentage of the films, return the investments to their investors more so than non-family friendly films. I don't seek them out. It would have to just sort of surface and be the right time and the right place.
Now, what do you think of something like Pure Flix, for those who may not be aware?
Oh, yeah, great network. Yeah, that's a great place to go. I mean, you can find outlets to find family-friendly and faith-based or faith-based content. There's no place not to find the content you want to watch today.
In the filmmaking industry, what gets you excited? What do you like, and what would you like to make moving forward? And also plug your upcoming projects.
We're going to work on Rusty Bucket. I'm working on a film about my brother because he was a school teacher who never got married, and he was really a dad to a bunch of students for, couple of decades. The principal that hired him basically just said, do whatever you want to do. Just graduate these students and make them succeed at this. And he did. I mean, and not just he passed them. These were Black females that were now going to go on to doing engineering and science and the study of interstellar space math formulas. I mean, this is the level at which my brother helped with the formula at NC State in the 1970s that helped to develop the trajectory for the flight to Mars with the first, Voyager, the first Voyager flight. He was just brilliant. So that's a project I'm working on. So I'm now doing things that are closer to home in a sense. I know I've got someone who wants to shoot a cop show called Peak City PD. Peak City is the name for Apex. And, I'm giving it some thought.
What does John Demers do when he's having a really rough day and he's kind of like, how do you get yourself back together? And what would you suggest to the audience in terms of a real specific play-by-play? Here's what I would recommend you all do.
We have to look for the good around us. It's easy for the bad to surface. It's easy for the negative to come around. People are going to beat us up all day long on social media. Their team wins, our team loses. We want ours to win. We want you to lose. I mean, that's all around us, this negative culture that's just grinding at us. You got to look for the light. You have to let God be with you. And when I can see it and let that be with me, the dark slips. It just slips away.
So last question, anything that I didn't cover, anything we didn't talk about when you think about it that you would really like to express to the audience?
That I'm not had a life that was special. I've had a life that was mine. And every one of us has a different set of life experiences. We may think that ours experiences are more bad than good, but I promise you, if you will take a moment, look, you will find something good. If it's just one moment in your life, take that moment and build on it. Take whatever light that you can find and build on it.
It's awesome. I like that. John, I want to thank you for being on the program today. It was just so awesome hearing your thoughts and, for you to share your wisdom with us. Thank you so much. To my audience, this is Todd Rheingold, the Hopeful Aspirant. Let's all aspire to reach higher and stay inspired. God bless.
I'm not afraid of the gentry in this county.
Look at my children!
Toby Burke, I know you're in here. I wonder how much is left of that $250,000. If it's not in my hand by midnight tomorrow night, then I'm going to have to make an example out of Gabe. I might even have to make an example out of you.